If I were to ask you what the single biggest problem with No Man's Sky today is, what would be your answer? This is not a video to hate on No Man's Sky, this is just some constructive criticism, and I think No Man's Sky is in an almost perfect place, but I think there's one thing that could really solidify No Man's Sky as the greatest space simulation game that we have, bar none. My name's Vault Zero, I make No Man's Sky content. I've been playing No Man's Sky since the launch on Xbox, and the one thing I can say that I've always longed for. Do you guys remember back when No Man's Sky was first announced? And Sean Murray said he showcased a big fleet battle, big space battle. He said these will occasionally occur throughout different systems that you warp to, and you'll get to choose a side on who to help. Well, that's kind of been added. There are pirate battles, pirates attacking freighters, pirate dreadnoughts attacking freighters. But in these situations, you can only side with the traders, or you can leave for no rewards. But if you want to be rewarded, you have to fight the pirates. My point in this is that our reputation system is severely flawed, and it's been overhauled once, but not to enough of a degree. And I'm going to tell you that an overhaul 3.0 for the factions and reputation would make No Man's Sky in a level of its own, in a league of its own. Because what it would do is it would create a living universe. Now, of course, that's easier said than done. But what I'm going to do is I've outlined some changes that I think would be great to bring into the game to help with this overhaul system for the factions in No Man's Sky. So I think here, number one, I think if you introduce some sort of territorial warfare, some kind of dynamic territorial war, that would be neat. Lore-wise, probably wouldn't fit. It may not happen just because lore-wise it wouldn't fit. Those of you who are privy to and remember the lore in No Man's Sky, the Gek were actually at one point the dominant species in the universe. They were like an ever-expanding empire until they were defeated by the Korvax and kind of made more docile, more trade-oriented, so that they're not really as aggressive. But nonetheless, I think introducing this kind of dynamic warfare between the factions would be cool. And what I mean by that is, one example is contested systems. Each system has a dominant species that controls it, and that kind of makes sense. But instead of them, what if they weren't static anymore? What if they could be contested? And say you fly into a system, and we already have systems that are already kind of chaotic. They have a high level of conflict. And in game now, what that means is there's more pirate activity. But what if, in addition to that, what if it didn't always have to be pirate activity? What if sometimes, say, you flew into a Gek system, but the Viking were trying to take it over, right? And then you could kind of decide who you wanted to help. If the Gek were firmly in control and you help the Gek, maybe you get some benefits from the Gek. Maybe you get discounts from their store. If the Viking are starting, their push is really working out, and they're about to take over, and you help them push over the edge and help them take over, you get rewards from the Viking. This really helps with the player influence and the choices we get to make, because it makes our choices more meaningful rather than the simple kind of reputation grinding. It goes up one, it goes up two, however many, and you can get some mid rewards. You feel more involved, and your rewards are better. So let's talk a little bit about deepening the faction reputation system, and we can do that with consequences. And I feel like that's kind of a no word in No Man's Sky, because it's a cozy game to a big probably fraction of the people who play it. but I think consequences would really change how you play No Man's Sky. It would make your choices more impactful. I'm a big believer that reputation should have significant and visible consequences. For example, if you have a high standing with Vy'keen or the Gek or the Korvax, you could grant access to high security areas. Um, you could get unique missions, unique armor sets, uh, maybe a signature weapon. However, um, on the flip side of that, if you're in very, very low standing or negative standing with the factions, it could lead to hostile encounters when you fly into their system, blockades, and even bounties. It should be more complex than what it is right now. It shouldn't just be mission completions and donations. Uh, I just don't think that's complex enough. And again, it's kind of like a razor's edge because so many people of the game play it casually, and then people like myself who enjoy playing survival, who enjoy the immersion, they would enjoy these kind of changes. Coming up next, and I know we're kind of like flying through these like lightning, but we're going to talk about expanding mission and reward variety a little bit. I think if you have specialized missions for each faction, it'll kind of help you decide, hey, I like this faction, I like this one. Well, for the Korvax, we could have missions like as resource gathering, system scanning, data retrieval, things like that. The more scientific approach. You could have the Vy'keen, which is more combat centric. You can have bounties, base raiding, escorting fleets, hunting down pirates, that kind of thing. And then the Gek, since they're trade oriented, they can have supply runs and market manipulation, things like that. The mercenaries, explorers, and traders, I feel like they should have special missions as well. What those could be, I think probably a little bit of mix of all three factions. I think finally, you want to talk about unique rewards. I just don't think in our current faction system, they're better than what they were when I first started playing. Don't get me wrong, for sure. But high tier faction rewards should be a must. Imagine a faction specific starship, or cosmetics for your base and your armor, or a faction specific multi tool like a custom one. That would be really cool, and it would really encourage players to pick a faction and stick with them. And that's the other thing I'm going to point out. I think once you pick a faction, you should kind of be locked into that faction, unless you want to start a new game. I just don't. With the caveat of like, if you want to be a space pirate, I think once you're a space pirate, you should kind of be locked into that as well. And that brings in the forged passports. I can kind of reset your standing. But I think to do that, your forged passports would have to be a lot harder to obtain than what they are currently. My point is, you should kind of be locked into whatever faction you decide to help. Maybe not hard set in, but at least soft set in, so that does feel like you're making a commitment and there's consequences if you don't honor that commitment, if that makes any sense. Alrighty, at number 4, we're going to talk about faction presence and making it feel more like a living universe. And we're going to move on a little bit to the pirate lifestyle here in just a minute. That'd be the last thing I cover. But when it comes to presence, we need more active NPCs in the star systems. You know, maybe if you had a Gek merchant running trade routes, a Korvax scientist exploring planets, or Vy'keen patrols securing borders, just more NPCs moving around the planets on foot, walking around the planets, doing tasks. That the more you run into these random NPCs on your adventure, the better, because it feels like the galaxy is lived in, the universe is lived in, and currently it does from a certain perspective. We have settlements, but I feel like the mass majority of us think that settlements are not enough because there's so many cries still for bigger cities. I think just putting the faction NPCs more prevalent throughout the system, completing tasks throughout the system, it makes it feel more alive, and it makes it feel like, hey, my choices for these factions matter. Finally, I want to talk about the pirate's life. The final faction. I just don't think it's given enough love. For someone who, like me, who loves playing as a space pirate, I like the Gek, I like the Viking, quarterbacks are just there for me. But more than anything, I like siding with the pirate faction, and I don't think crime is as difficult as it should be. Smuggling, super easy. You can even teleport to another system and just and reap the rewards. I don't think that should be the case. I think if you have illegal contraband on your person or on your ship, you should not be allowed to teleport. I'm going to talk about a couple more ways I think to fix that. But I think, like we were talking about earlier, with negative standing, you should run into blockades. I think, imagine that the Sentinels patrols are more frequent, more varied. You should have additional technology on your ship to deflect their scans, but the scan should never reach 100% that you're going to block it. I think it should always be maybe a 10-15% chance that it'll fail. And that may ruffle some feathers for people who are kind of like, hey man, I just want to make quick credits and not really have to worry about the Sentinels. But I think we've already had that system for kind of too long. The last thing I wanted to bring up about the pirates is a system I think would be amazing to bring into the game. I had this idea the other day and I had to talk about it, and it's the most wanted system. I think you should be able to accumulate bounty throughout the star systems based on the crimes you commit, escaping Sentinels, smuggling, breaking into planetary depots and things like that, planetary outposts. And as your rank climbs, as you accumulate more and more bounties, factions will actually send NPC bounty hunters after you to try to hunt you down. I think that would lead to something incredibly cool for people like me who enjoy that life of crime lifestyle in No Man's Sky. But guys, I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on how you think the faction system can be improved, if you think it will make that much of a difference at all, and what kind of changes you would like to see in the faction system. Because I personally think it's still not quite where it needs to be. But I really appreciate you guys for watching. You know, if you enjoyed the video, if you liked it, if you learned anything, if you were entertained, make sure you smash that like button, perhaps even sub to the channel. I got a bunch more No Man's Sky content coming up. Even thinking about doing a few jump space videos when it comes into early access tomorrow. Super excited about that. But I will catch you guys in the stars.